The story begins with a hardcore gamer named Kenichi who has just finished a game that took him a full 3 years to complete. After clearing it, he leans back in his chair and thinks about how boring and disappointing the game actually was. What Kenichi really wants is a game that will push him to his limits. With that in mind, Kenichi immediately starts searching for his next game. He scrolls through different titles and recommendations, but suddenly, his computer screen glitches and strange text appears on the screen, offering him a game that never ends. Kenichi's eyes widen in excitement. He has never heard of a game that never ends before. He is then asked to select the difficulty level. The options range from easy mode to hard mode. However, he notices an extra option called Hell mode. Without a second thought, he selects Hell mode. Next, he chooses the Summoner class and confidently clicks the Start button. The moment he does, his screen flashes brightly. He gets sucked straight into his computer screen. The next thing he knows, he wakes up in a completely different world as a newborn baby, crying as he is born into a poor serf family. Shortly after his birth, a man picks him up gently and gives him a name. That name is Alan. Surprisingly, Alan does not feel upset about his situation. In his previous life, he was a 35-year-old broke gamer stuck working a dead-end job with no future. Compared to that, this new life feels like a fresh start. At the moment, Alan is only 1 year old, so he cannot speak yet. However, he has no trouble thinking clearly inside his mind. He also realizes that the language spoken in this world is Japanese. Alan and his family live in a frontier village where pioneers pay taxes to a ruling lord in exchange for the right to cultivate the land. Alan's father is named Rodin, a hardworking and caring man. His mother's name is Teresa, and Alan assumes she is likely in her late teens. Watching how close and loving his parents are with each other, Alan figures it is only a matter of time before he ends up with younger siblings. Later that night, after Alan is put to bed, he suddenly remembers that in this world, he is supposed to be a summoner. Curious, he decides to try opening a status window. However, instead of a simple window appearing, a large book suddenly materializes above him. Alan shrieks in shock, and his shout immediately grabs his parents' attention. Alan panics and quickly gets back to sleep. His parents rush in to check on him, but when they see that nothing strange is happening, they assume he was just making noise in his sleep. Thinking it is nothing serious, they quietly leave the room. Once they are gone, Alan brings the book back out again. He soon learns that the floating book is actually a grimoire that contains all the details about his stats and abilities. The book explains that he can summon creatures, but because of his low level, he is currently limited to summoning only insects and beasts. Even so, Alan wants to summon something right away. However, no matter how many times he tries, nothing happens at all. After several failed attempts, Alan remembers another skill listed in the grimoire and decides to try using his create skill first. When he activates it, something finally happens. A crafting card for an insect appears right in front of him. Now that he has the crafting card, he prepares to summon the insect properly. Just as he is about to do it, his mother comes in to check on him. Alan reacts instantly, lying back down and pretending to be asleep. After his mother leaves the room, he notices he is suddenly tired. Deciding it is better to rest, he chooses to go to sleep and tries summoning again the next morning. The following morning, when his parents are not watching him, Alan carefully brings out his grimoire again. This time, he successfully completes the summoning. In an instant, a giant grasshopper appears and jumps straight onto his face. Alan panics, but quickly tries giving it orders. Unfortunately, the grasshopper shows no interest in listening and simply hops away on its own. The grimoire also informs him that he needs to give his summoned creature a name. After thinking for a moment, Alan decides that Dina sounds like a decent name for a grasshopper. He then looks at his own stats and realizes that summoning Dina has actually increased his abilities. Before he can celebrate, his mother suddenly walks into the room. She immediately notices Dina. She reacts without thinking and instantly squashes the grasshopper. Just like that, Dina is gone. After a few more days of playing around with his skills, Alan finally manages to summon another creature. This time, it is a small mouse, which he decides to name Mousy. Unfortunately, Mousy turns out to be just as unintelligent as Denko was. However, unlike Dina, Mousy has a useful ability called Scurry, which allows him to move around the room at an extremely fast speed. Alan spends the rest of the day carefully studying his grimoire. That afternoon, Alan's father, Rodin, finally returns home. His clothes are stained with blood, and it is clear that he has just come back from a dangerous hunt. Rodin proudly tells Alan that he managed to take down a massive boar. He then asks Alan if he wants to go see it. Hearing this, Alan becomes incredibly excited. Seeing how thrilled his son is, Rodin decides to take him along. At that moment, his father points toward a flock of birds known as Albaon. Rodin then explains to Alan that he named him after the Albon. After about a 10-minute walk, they arrive at the spot where the boar is being cut up. At first, Alan is filled with excitement as he stares at it up close. Alan understands that if he ever had to fight something like this right now, he would stand no chance at all. After a short while, one of their neighbors, a man named Jera, walks over to Rodin and congratulates him on defeating the boar. Soon after, the other villagers begin cheering as well. Rodin then formally introduces Alan to Jera. Jera is left completely speechless when he sees how polite and well-mannered Alan is, especially considering that he is only 1 year old. Putting that aside, Alan asks Jera how strong a boar actually is. Jera explains that boars are naturally kank monsters, and that it usually takes around 20 people working together to bring just one of them down. Hearing this, Alan realizes that this gives him a clear benchmark for what kind of strength exists in this world and what he might have to face in the future. After 10 months later, Alan discovers that he has finally reached level 2 as a summoner. This level up allows him to create G-rank creature cards, which is a big step forward for him. On top of that, he gains a brand new skill that lets him fuse his summoned creatures together. That night, after finishing dinner, Alan feels more excited than ever with his new level and expanded inventory. He eagerly prepares to test out his fusion technique for the very first time. But Alan soon ends up feeling disappointed when he realizes that he still cannot use his fusion technique on his cards. Time passes, and by the time Alan turns 3 years old, he has made clear and noticeable progress as a summoner. After many attempts, he finally succeeds in using his fusion technique on several of his cards. Through this process, he manages to craft a bird card, and the bird he summons from it is named Chappie. Chappie has a special ability called voice mimicry, which allows him to perfectly imitate anything Alan says. In the afternoon, one of Alan's friends, a girl named Karina, comes over for a play date. As usual, they start playing knights and sword fighting with wooden sticks. To his surprise, Karina is much faster and more agile than he expected. She moves quickly. Alan struggles to keep up with her pace, and before he realizes it, he ends up losing the fight. That night, Teresa announces that she is pregnant. Hearing this, Alan tells his father that he wants to help with harvesting the potatoes since his mother will not be able to help as much anymore. However, they gently tell him that a child his age should not have to work and that he should focus on playing and having fun instead. They also mention that they are really looking forward to Alan's appraisal ceremony. Alan has no idea what that is. So, there explains that when he turns 5 years old, there will be a divine ceremony to determine what kind of talent he possesses. A few months later, during the winter season, Alan accidentally forgets to put Dino away. Because of this, his mother suddenly sees the insect. Terrified, their ass slips and falls to the ground. When Rodin rushes in to check on her, tells him that her water has broken and that the baby is coming. Rodin quickly asks Karina to go get her parents to help with childbirth. Not long after, Jera and his wife Matilda arrive to help Teresa. Matilda takes charge of the situation and immediately orders all the men out of the house. The long night passes, and by the next morning, the boys wake up to the sound of a baby crying. They rush over and find that the baby has been safely delivered. Teresa asks Rodin to name the child. Without thinking too deeply about it, Rodin decides to name him Mesh. Deja instantly wonders if the name came from a monster. Rodin admits that it did, but Deja cannot deny that it sounds good. She starts laughing, and everyone else joins in. As they laugh together, Alan quietly watches them, thinking back on everything. Aside from his desperate wish to play a hardcore game with terrible balance, he remembers how miserable and meaningless his old life felt and realizes that he is completely fine leaving it behind. In this new world, he feels free more than anything else. He knows that this new family is the best part of his new life. Alan makes a silent promise to himself. No matter what it takes, he will free his family from the harsh life of being serfs. Sometime later, when Alan turns 5 years old, he asks his father what the aptitude ceremony is like. And the man explains that it's a special event where everyone, from servants to nobles, has to take part once they reach that age. He goes on to say that if Alan shows good aptitude, he might get a shot at rising up in life and no longer having to live as a servant. However, the problem is that he'll have plenty of rivals. Alan doesn't really get what that means, so his father explains that when people first settled in these lands, they started having children non-stop. In other words, there are tons of kids the same age as Alan right now. Just then, Karina pops up behind his father and calls out to Alan so they can head to the event together. And after walking for a while, Karina is taken aback by how many houses there are in the village where the test is being held. While Alan looks around in awe, Krina swears that she'll become a knight if she's designated as a swordsman when they finally arrive at the church where the test will take place. Alan notices that the commoners there are wearing much nicer clothes than his, clearly having more money than his family. He even overhears some kids picking on him for being a servant. In the middle of all that, the religious officials open the church doors and ask for the blessing of Elmia, the god of creation, so that all children may be given equal opportunities. They explain that this country has seen heroes whose bloodlines once came from servitude, mentioning how Clases the Saint was born a humble commoner, while Dverg the Sword Lord was once just a servant. Hearing this fills Alan with hope, and he recalls that before reincarnating, he knew that classes like Hero and Sword Lord were supposed to start in lower social classes. Soon after, the participants are called inside to begin the long-awaited evaluation. Alan notices the statue of Elmia standing inside the church, and then the leader of the religious group invites the village chief, Doji, to begin the evaluations with his son Palamomus. Each child has to touch the crystal ball, and whatever attributes and talents are revealed get written onto the metal plate behind the priest. Tension takes over as the village leader starts sweating from anticipation, and moments later, his son steps up and touches the crystal. His attributes appear on the metal plate, laid out exactly the same way Alan saw on his own status page. Palamomas turns out to have the talent of a merchant, which leaves his father extremely satisfied and emotional. Alan checks his grimoire and notices that the attributes are shown as ranks instead of numbers. As the evaluations continue, another boy steps up and discovers that he has no talent at all, causing him to run off crying into his father's arms. Next up, a cocky kid slaps his own face before learning that he has the talent of good luck, and then starts celebrating even more when he finds out he's an axeman. Alan is impressed, especially after seeing that this boy, Daggera, has an attribute ranked first, the highest rank he's ever seen in his life. Time keeps moving, and one by one, all the children finish their evaluations until only Alan and Krina are left at the very end, eager to get it over with. Krina rushes toward the crystal ball, and the moment she reaches out and touches it, the magical item lets out an extraordinary glow. Right after that, the metal plate reveals that she has the talent to become a sword lord, something so rare that it's practically a miracle. Everyone freezes in shock at the sight of such a powerful talent, while Krina grumbles that she wanted to be a swordsman instead. Alan finally understands why she's always been so overpowered whenever they sparred. Soon after, the son of Rodin is called up for the final evaluation of the event. Without showing any anxiety, Alan steps forward, expecting to finally prove to his parents that he's a conjurer. However, the moment he touches the crystal ball, he's violently thrown backward by an overwhelming surge of magical force. Unable to read the results, Rodin rushes over to ask the priest what happened, only to hear the unbelievable answer that Alan has no talent at all where his class should be. Instead, the metal plate shows a glitch filled with random letters. Furious, Alan starts cursing the families of the devs who can't fix their junk game, while Rodin stays calm and simply calls his son to head back home. Hours later, they return to Teresa and Mash, who welcome them with open arms. Later that night, as everyone gathers around the fire, his parents make it clear that he'll always be precious to them, talent or no talent. When bedtime comes, he checks his grimoire again and confirms that all his attributes are ranked E, which leads him to a shocking realization. He's the only person in this world playing on Hell mode. Since everyone who took the evaluation was 5 years old, they should all be level 1 just like him. However, the rank system seems to reflect growth potential per level, meaning his E-ranked attributes are a result of Hell mode slowing his growth by nearly 100 times. In other words, his ranks are showing only a fraction of his real value. After spending a lifetime playing ridiculously easy games, Kenichi Yamada has been reborn into a world where he's the only player stuck on Hell mode, something that would drive most people insane. Still, Alan refuses to give up, since he jumped into this challenge precisely to spit in the face of easy games. As for the nonsense written where his class should be, he figures it's just a clumsy glitch, and the devs will fix it sooner or later. The next morning, Alan asks his mother why his father has been acting strange since the night before. By nightfall, the whole family heads to Krina's house to celebrate her being revealed as a sword lord. Excited, She tells Alan that a sword lord is stronger than a swordsman, and he pretends to play dumb to hide the fact that he didn't know. Matilda mentions that the village chief stopped by earlier to gift them some liquor, and Roden tries to hide his happiness as he tells everyone to enjoy the drink. Alan starts suspecting that his father might be jealous of Krina's talent, when Jera insists that Roden take the first sip since guests should drink first. The two end up arguing until Jera reveals that Roden actually wants to cut ties between their families. Cornered, Roden explains that Krina's talent is so extraordinary that she could become a knight and maybe even reach nobility one day. Tensions rise until the argument nearly turns into a fight, forcing Alan to ask Krina to stop them, though their wives step in first. After Matilda punches her husband in the face, Alan learns that she's not someone to mess with. As the night goes on, stories are shared about how the two families have been friends since childhood, how they built their houses together 10 years ago, and how Roden and Jera used to trade punches almost daily. Eventually, after finally drinking the liquor they'd avoided since marriage, the two men make peace at dawn. While working, Jera learns that the Night Order is after Krina, and without wasting time, he and his friends escort her to the city where the evaluation took place. Suddenly, Dagara shows up, holding a club and looking furious, mocking Alan for being in the city despite having no talent. Krina immediately steps in to protect her friend, and Jera barely manages to hold her back before she beats the kid senseless. Right then, the Night Order arrives, instantly commanding respect as Captain Xenov, a sword master, dismounts with his subordinates. After the village chief calls Jera and his daughter forward, Xenov proposes that Krina join the Night Order, but Jera refuses, arguing that she's too young. Xenov responds coldly, stating that refusing could be taken as an attempt to deceive Baron Granville, which is punishable by death, and demands verification of her talent through combat. Despite Jera's pleas, Krina is forced into a duel, and if she refuses, her entire family will be executed. Without fear, Krina grabs a sword and faces the vice captain, Liebrand, announcing herself as Krina the Knight before charging straight at him. Although Liebrand easily blocks her attacks at first, Krina's confidence never wavers. Even after being kicked hard enough to crash into a wall, she stands back up, unleashing a powerful surge of magic that multiplies her strength and speed. After a brutal exchange, she slices Liebrand's weapon in half and nearly kills him, prompting Xenov to declare her victory. Later, during a meeting at the village chief's house, Xenov officially names the settlement Kina Village and explains the past failure that led to strict reevaluations. He apologizes to Jera and asks him to raise Krina with care so she can attend the academy at age 12. When Dagara asks if anyone can become a knight, Xenov explains that an instructor will be sent and that only those who earn approval will advance. After Krina defends Alan once again, Xenov finally notices him and stands up to greet Roden, praising him as a legendary boar hunter whose meat is favored by the Baron. After the meeting ends, Roden tells Alan that even servants can earn recognition and that his son still has a chance to achieve something great. With that, Alan pulls out 2 fruits he stole to give to his mother and brother, only for them to burst out laughing when Roden reveals he stole even more. That was the second episode. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on